There we go. Welcome, everyone. It's Thursday at reInvent. I know this is one of the last sessions you'll probably have before the conclusion of the conference. So I thought it's only right to kind of spice it up a little bit. So I'm going to start off with two truths and a lie, and you get to kind of sort out which ones are which. The first one is that we're going to be talking a little bit about how Nvidia migrated their SAP estate onto AWS, and as a result, it really fueled their business growth. Maybe they're not so hard to determine which is the truth. Whoops. The next one is that we're going to talk about some services inside of AWS that we've launched to help support running your SAP workloads in a smoother fashion. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how our professional services goes and helps in that endeavor. And the third thing is that I'm currently wearing some shoes that are powered by Nvidia GPUs to wear to our replay party tonight. And with that, my name is Brian Griffin. I'm the CTO of our SAP Professional Services practice. And I'm joined on stage here today. Coming up will be Vijay Kasaraju, who is the Director of IT for Nvidia, as well as Balakrishnan Karupia, who is Senior Manager of IT. Vijay?
Thank you, Brian, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So before I start, first let me talk about what NVIDIA does. I'm sure most of you guys already know what NVIDIA does, but for a quick refresher, I'm going to play a quick video which beautifully explains what NVIDIA does. Thanks to Brian for helping me. We have some little bit of technical glitch.
Ready, go!
Once upon a time, it was all fun and games. Nvidia started off by making chips for video game machines. Graphics became serious business when people started using Nvidia for blockbuster movies, medical imaging devices, and the world's most powerful supercomputers. And then one day, researchers discovered that our technology was perfect for AI. Today, Nvidia is the engine of AI. Engineering the most advanced chips and systems and the software that makes them sing. So robots can lend us a hand. Cars can drive themselves. And even the Earth can have a digital twin. We live to tackle the world's biggest challenges. And don't worry, we still love our fun and games.
I hope you enjoy the video and learn something new about NVIDIA. So now, are we good? Okay. So let me explain our cloud journey. And the first step is let me talk about what is SAP, how we implemented SAP. We implemented SAP at NVIDIA back in 2001. So we have a full-blown SAP system, and all of our critical business processes are managed through SAP ecosystem. I'll explain a little bit about SAP ecosystem a little later. So, as you see in the slide, either you see we generate our financial statements, we manage our order to cash, entire process, end-to-end process, and you name it, our production planning, which includes our demand planning, supply planning. You name it, there are all sorts of planning. And also, last but not least, the supply chain. As you know, NVIDIA is a fabless company, and we have integrations with a lot of foundries and partners, subcons, test centers, and this integration is big. So we need to have a visibility into that. So for our inventory and our tracking, and ultimately it generates revenue, right? So that's a very complex process, and there's very complex integration. If you see, like, you look at it, all these things, it's a full-fledged SAP complex integration with thousands and thousands of integrations. It goes back and forth between all the partners and the foundries, etc. So now, this is like the complex process I just explained, and also we have a complex landscape, like SAP, complex landscape of the SAP ecosystem. So we have like a support landscape, like any other company, any other SAP plan. We have a project landscape. We have also a sandbox for the entire ecosystem. So I was talking about ecosystem, right? It's not just like ECC. We have a ECC, we have a planning system, APOs, we have a data warehouse, and we have a CRM. And there are a lot of other third-party systems which are integrated into SAP, which we need all the data for our planning and day-to-day business activities. So we have this complex landscape across the entire SAP ecosystem. So you implemented SAP 20 years ago, so why you guys moved to cloud? So what are the key drivers and why you guys moved to cloud? So, as you know, Nvidia has grown substantially in the last 3 years, and we wanted to support our business growth. And when we were thinking about how to support this dynamic business growth dynamically, there were 3 things that it popped up to us. One, our business wants it very high availability. They cannot have any downtime, near zero downtime, any downtime in the sense like it's close to near zero downtime. So because we were an on-prem, we have a lot of dependencies with the on-prem infrastructure. Like, as you all know, we're dependent on network, we're dependent on storage, we are dependent on so many compute, all that stuff. So to have that high availability, we have to reduce the dependency. And also the second thing is our business wanted is the business recovery plan, the robust business recovery plan / disaster recovery, whatever that happens in that case. If something happens, we need to get back to business as quickly as possible. What is the best way that we can get back to that? Last but not least, as we all know, is the financial system, record of the financials, so that's why security is also important. So these 3 factors forced us to, so what do we do? So how do we support our business? So then we thought, we need to have a agile and scalable infrastructure. So cloud definitely supports that. So let's get to the cloud. So then what happened is there is one more big catalyst which helped us our acceleration to cloud. So our SAP data center, we were supposed to exit. We made a decision. We want to move our data center from California to some other location. So then we had an opportunity. Now we have an option in front of us. Should we go to the other data center and continue on-prem, or should we go to cloud? So 2 things helped us mainly. One is our internal strategy, cloud-first strategy. IT strategy is our cloud-first. That really helped us. And second thing is, the stakeholders' commitment. And the key takeaway is whenever you are planning for, I'm sure you must be, a lot of you must be planning to go to cloud or maybe in the process of planning to cloud. The key takeaway is please get an alignment from your stakeholders. We have spent enormous amount of time, and there was a lot of going back and forth and a lot of suspension, a lot of doubts arise. Oh my God, we have so much of connectivity to SAP. The latency could be a problem. The security could be a problem. It's the record for the financial systems. There are so many things up in the cloud that a lot of back and forth happened. But we had a great support from our management and great support from the alignment perspective from all the stakeholders. So that is very, very important. If you're planning for it, make sure that you get the alignment from your stakeholders. So now we got all aligned. So business aligned, all stakeholders aligned. So now here is the problem comes. Here is the challenge comes. It's a good problem to have. So we acquired a company called Mellanox, you all know. So then, our business said, great. Business cannot be disturbed. You can do cloud migration, great. You give me a high uptime, great. You give me better business continuity plan. We are happy with that, but you can't stop 3 things. One, our digital transformation, which we were doing it to going to S4. And second, the biggest thing that we did is like the integration of Mellanox into a single ERP platform. It's like a $3 billion, $4 billion company we are trying to merge. At the same time when we were migrating our SAP systems. None of them can be stopped. You guys have to manage it. So that's what, and then last but not least, so to get this high availability, we need to automate. We need to automate means we have to standardize on our databases. We have to standardize on OS. Otherwise, earlier, different SAP systems were running on different versions of database, different versions of OS, because of a variety of reasons. It's a 20-year implementation, right? So I'm sure you guys must be having same thing in your organization. So what we did is, okay, we tried our best to bring it to most of the system to a OS level, most of the system to a database level, so that we can use the scripts, we can automate it, and we can reduce the time. So, okay, so this is the exciting journey. Now, you are running 3 major projects at same time, and the time given to us, 8 months. Okay, so we decided in January we are going to go cloud. We started in March, and because data center exit was going to happen in December, so we went live last year, just week before Thanksgiving, and after that, the first week we closed our financial books, month-end closing without any impact. So that was our journey. So that's where Brian and all these AWS team members are all, joined with us in doing it. So, you guys must be thinking, are you guys crazy? Why you did so many things in parallel? Generally, when you do an SAP project, you generally put it on hold. First, let's get one project go, and then. No, we thought about it. Because we have to support the business, we took the calculated risk. So, and also we did a lot of mitigations. I'll tell you what are those. Okay, when we thought about all these things, okay, so let's get right team to implement it. And then also we partnered with SAP. We had that max attention. SAP has reviewed all of our architecture, and they were on the project call every single day with us and solving the problems as and when it arises. And also we had, like Brian and team, brought a consulting company called Lemongrass. We handpicked a couple of experts, and then they were all like helping us. For example, DR strategy, when we were doing a DR build, we got a DR expert. When we were doing a cloud move migration, we got a cloud endure expert. Like that, whatever that they needed, that we got. Again, I'm going back to the alignment. We have to have a stakeholder alignment, which is very critical. So that helped us a lot in getting the right resources at right time. And then we have successfully executed in 8 months in the entire landscape, not just one system. Every single system, we did 7 iterations, like the project systems, project QA systems, development systems, QA systems, sandbox, and finally production a week before the Thanksgiving. That's the complexity of the project, and that's the nature of the project. So I talked about it. So, during that process itself, we were doing the SAP S4 HANA also. And a part of the S4 HANA, so we have to have, what's the big deal about it? But the big deal is here. So you have to have an SLT, you have 2 SAP ERP systems running in parallel, and then you have to have a lot of variables that you're introducing when you are migrating it, right? So that is what the complexity brings into the picture. So I just want to give the complex nature of it. And then, we have so my colleague Balakrishnan will explain the entire migration in detail. So how we did it, so how it's our architecture and the rest of the stuff. So he will explain to you guys in the next 15, 20 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about our migration, a little bit of best practices and approaches and methodology. Before going there, I wanted to just highlight the fact that over the period, as the business grew, the demand for higher availability, improving the uptime has been significantly improved. They want us to reduce the plant downtime as to close to near zero. So our goal has been to get to the 4 nines. Can we get to the 4 nines? And what it takes to design that architecture, and so that we can promise the business the highest availability. So that's the goal. So in order to do that, we have to do certain, before we get into the execution, I wanted to highlight, we need to spend a lot of time on gathering your technical requirements. That's the key to be a success. When I say technical requirement, which includes your RPO, RTO strategy, your data requirements, as a compliance, we need to have keep our storage data for 7 years, and your I/O throughput, tagging strategy, host name standardization, hardening, and including SAP systems, you need to map your SKUs to your app servers and DB servers. You need to have everything locked and finalized before you start your execution. And then once you decided, have a technical documentation and a run book to execute it, then you also have to decide how are you going to what's your methodology? How are you going to do your migration? I have seen some have done application-wise migration, one system at a time, say ECC landscape to the cloud, BW, etc., or just do a lift and shift of entire landscape. Entire landscape, we are talking about 17-odd SAP system in one single lift and shift. So there is a pros and cons of doing either cases. If you're doing one system at a time, you end up connecting a legacy system and a new platform, and then you're going to have some unknown consequences, your latency issues. And in our case, it was much clearer. We have to exit our data center within 8 months. That means we don't have a choice. We have to do a lift and shift. Having said that, if I were to do it again, we probably will still choose to do that full lift and shift. It may sound crazy, but we call it as calculated risk. With the right support and right methodology, you can still get this done. I wanted to just a few more points while we get into this. The landscapes, and you need to decide your sequence of the landscapes, and are you going to do any transformation? Are you going to do lift and shift, etc.? All those decisions you need to finalize before you start your journey. So let's get started. I want to walk you through inside the SAP migration. I'll touch upon what's the methodology and what's some of the best practices we followed, some lessons learned, some challenges, and also we identified some issues along the way, and then we remediated what you can look for, and also some prerequisites we've captured, probably is useful for you. And then how did the system perform after we migrated? So also we have some metrics we can walk you through. Okay, let's get started. So for us, before we started, we clearly defined what tools and tool sets we are going to use for migration. With a great partnership with the AWS ProServe team, the key tool set we used was the AWS Launch Wizard. You might have probably heard it in other sessions. This is a great tool for SAP migration. This, plus along with the CloudFormation templates, again, AWS ProServe team has different templates. You can pretty much automate your system build. You can pretty much, you don't have to do a manual download and configuration of file system and installation. All those can be avoided by using template-based installations. And then, depending on your situation, we started as a Windows SQL. We use backup and restore for any system that's moving from Windows to Windows. Any system we are transforming, say Windows to Linux, we used SAP's R3 export tool, which has been in the industry for many years, so we can use either backup and restore or R3 export. And then any system that doesn't fit into any SAP, for example, a third party or a custom app, you really don't want to install and reconfigure the system. In this case, we use a migration hub, which basically preserves the whole system, migrates it, so you don't have to spend time reconfiguring the system. You may not have the vendors available. There's a lot of complex things you can avoid. And then last one is the file share. Probably in the SAP landscape, you're aware, it's used for file transfers for inbound and outbound from batch system, dropping files for users' consumption, and vice versa. And this was one of the challenge we had. We had a huge legacy 20-year-old file share system with thousands and thousands of directories and subdirectories and permissions. It was so complex for us to migrate one, and secondly, we preserve the permission levels. So with multiple iteration, we decided to go with NetApp ONTAP. We'll talk about a little bit of how it helped us. Little bit of AWS launch wizard, very high level, how it helped us. In typical landscape, you probably have multiple teams helping you setting up infrastructure and configuring your file system, et cetera. In this case, it's all managed by managed services, on-demand infrastructure available to you. You pick your EBS and EFS and EC2, write EC2 SKUs, and then pretty much storage and HANA installation can be installed using Launch Wizard. And this pretty much is automated. And then one thing is left is application-specific configuration. In this case, if it's an APO system or you have a specific configuration such as live cache or a BW, HANA or ECC, you have application-specific configuration still you have to manually perform. In this case of on-premise, you need an infrastructure team building the infrastructure, deploying the OAS and configuration and manual installation, and then again you have additional configuration step. All this can be avoided if you have the right automation tools in place. Little bit of FSx NetApp ONTAP. We decided to, when we went live, we didn't have this available to us, so we went with the regular VM file share, and then later on, once it was available, we started this migration. We'll be going live by end of the year. This was really met our requirement. One is, this is an AWS managed services. That means you don't have to worry about backup and recovery. All the capabilities, it has the out-of-the-box recovery of a file level. And user can restore their file within 7 days, and all the capabilities, multi-AZ and high availability, scalability, and all those permissions, self-service capabilities, we wanted for each line of business. We can carve out different SVMs, and then they can manage their own virtual capacity. And from security point perspective, it actually reduces your blast radius, so it's very valuable for us, this tool. What's our future state would look like? As you can see, from the business perspective, we really wanted to have a more resilient, highly available architecture. That means we need to take SAP's high availability distributed architecture, just lay our availability zones, and then you distribute at level, at the application level and DB level, and then DR, we have multi-region, we have US West 2 primary, and then East 1 as a second region, and then OS level cluster, so that we were able to distribute the components, so we can actually bring up environments with an availability zone failure or a HANA DB node failure, we can always have the highest availability. We talked about file shares, and then for backups, we use, initially we started with the SSM scripting. It was a really high overhead managing the scripting. Really wanted an enterprise level holistic solution. We picked Commvault enterprise solution for the backup. And we just talked about S/4HANA. Just one point I want to highlight, in a typical on-prem world, for you to have an HANA appliance deployed and configured, and the whole procurement cycle takes 6 months sometimes, 3 to 6 months. For us, it's just a week for us to deploy S/4HANA directly in the cloud. I'm going to talk a few slides about our architecture, starting with the cloud landing zone, and HA architecture and DR architecture. So the key is to have the landing zone properly configured, so avoid any rework and retrofitting other issues. We did face this issue because of the time constraints, but I wanted to highlight that the key to have a right account structure, dedicated VPCs for each accounts. We had a development system, VPC, dev accounts, a QA account, and a production account, and a DR account, and very clearly defined, and also following all the best practices of auditing and logging, et cetera. And we also had a DNS and shared services, and then we have redundant direct connects from on-prem. So when we carved out the whole systems from the on-prem, we really wanted to create a loosely coupled, highly agile environment. So only dependency for on-prem is the direct connect, and then we have the really geo-redundant direct connect infrastructure. Just a reference architecture. Wanted to show you an HANA running on SUSE HAE. We have 3 flavors of same architecture. We have HANA, SUSE Linux. We also have Windows, SQL, always on, and also we have Sybase ASC. And pretty much it follows the same reference architecture. As you can see, we have distributed the SAP application between availability zones, and you have ERS nodes distributed, and then we have application servers distributed. If you have more than one application server, our strategy is to distribute between availability zones, and then the databases has, here in this case, HANA, you have replication using HANA system replication. And it's basically using SAP. EFS is, if you are familiar with SAP, you have a common directory called SAP Trans, you use it SAP Mount, and all your profile directory requires to be mounted in every application server in the architecture. So we use EFS. It's multi-AZ and multi-region. So it's EFS if it's Linux, if it's FSX, Windows for Windows. So we talked about have wanted to design a future DR solution to give us a reduced RTO and RPO numbers. We wanted to really achieve an infra RTO of 2 hours and near zero data loss. That's our goal to design our RPO. And also, in addition to that, I want you to mention testing. You need to validate whether you can achieve your infra DR by simulation your test DR solution. A very high level architecture on our pilot DR environment. It's as you can see, it's an extension of your local HANet architecture to the DR region. We have US West 2 as our primary region, and then US West 2, East 1 is our secondary region, and then exactly the database replication. So we use database replication for higher RTO, and then we use Cloud NDO replication for application server replication. And then Cloud NDO services is responsible for bringing up the DR during the DR. So I guess it's called DRS. Services, it brings up the DR when you initiate a DR. We also set up a small bubble environment or a virtual DR environment to validate. And then so in the future, we are planning to execute DR in the virtual environment while the live production system is running. Exactly the same architecture, EFS, available in across the site and the region, and then S3 bucket for backups and archivals. Some challenges I wanted to highlight. This can be avoided if you have more time for planning, such as landing zones. In our case, we started implementing a landing zone as well as we started our migration. We were running it kind of in parallel tracks. So we had to do a little bit of a rework of our landing zone, to fix our architecture to be more secure. We also had another point from an organization perspective is having a skill set, basic skill set, so that your in-house team can handle it. In our case, we started with a limited skill set. So, and then we have to leverage AWS Pro Service team to help us guide, and then working closely with them. And when we executed the production system, our NVIDIA basis team and Pro Service team were working closely, side by side, executing the migration. Results, some lessons learned from this. So just a summarize on what we achieved as a result of our modernization or a transformation. We wanted to get to Linux first. Our goal is aligned with SAP. SAP runs on, HANA runs on Linux. And also it gives us some of the capabilities such as live patching for SUSE, Linux live patching. I wanted to mention here, this live patching gives us zero downtime for the application. That means you can pretty much patch your security patching, quarterly or monthly sequences, cadences. You don't need to bounce your Linux system. You don't need to restart your system. That gave us your 9.99, 4 nines availability for one of the line of the business. We really wanted to extend that capability to the rest of the modules. With the implementation of, using AWS Patch Manager, we were able to reduce our downtime, planned downtime by 50%. We can from 8 hours to less than 4 hours. We achieved our database transformation. Some of the systems we moved to Sybase AAC. There's an opportunity to reduce cost from Windows to Sybase. We took that opportunity to convert some of the application to Sybase AAC and also implemented exactly the same reference architecture. From security perspective, we followed all the guidelines of CIS benchmark for AWS, including enabling the locking, versioning, and then a data loss protection for 7 years, and audit and compliance. So lessons learned perspective, 3 points I wanted to highlight. One is the organization change, how it affected, positively impacted the team, and how we helped the team overcome the challenges initially, and then the technology and the cost optimization. From team perspective, initially the team was a little anxious because there's the expectation for the basis engineers to learn basis plus the cloud skill set, which is you're expecting 15 years and 20 years experience person to learn something new skills. That was a little bit of a ramp to climb. So with the right resources, we can achieve this. We had AWS ProServe team helping us, and also we had a structured AWS training program structured along with this project, so the team was able to ramp up quickly. As a result of this, today we have two, the organization-wise, you have people at AWS architect levels, and then you have basis expertise, and the one spectrum, we are trying to bring both skills together. In terms of technology, one thing I wanted to highlight is make sure you take care of your prerequisites, compatibility, and what's your target landscape. You wanted to ensure that it's taken care as part of your technical design. And then I wanted to mention, I didn't mention about testing. We did, every time we migrated the system, we do functional validation or sanity checks, but in one of the QA environment, we did a full regression, functional regression testing. And also we did one performance benchmarking to understand if we have to scale up or if we have to downgrade any of the environment. So it helps you tailor your requirements, fine-tune it before going live. And then one third testing is our DR simulation. We were able to execute one DR simulation before going live, and also help us validate our RPO and RTO metrics. From cost perspective, cost is a key. It's new to us again, from coming from the on-prem world. But the good news is AWS provides all the great tools and trusted advisors. And following this, we could achieve either reserved instance or savings plan. Savings plan worked for us really well. And we really work closely with the AWS team to understand what is the right mix of how much of dynamics load the on-demand capability versus locking we should do. And this is a continuous process to get the right mix for you. And then last one is important is, very important point is keeping the cost close to your TCO is ensuring you're using your resources more efficiently, which includes you are not having any EBS snapshot or any data sitting idle and consuming cost. And that's going to cost us really high. So you need to reassess all your landscape and all the services enabled after go live. So how did we perform post go live? So we went live. It's almost 1 year since we went live, and we had our first close right after the go live, and first time our financial close process was completed within the SLA. This is the first time we were able to complete our full financial close in the new platform within their SLA. It was a huge win for us and for the business, and we were able to understand how we are able to achieve. When we are comparing with the on-prem system, it was also equally a great system. We had the higher SAN storage, millions of IOPS. Still, this new platform validated that we gained significant improvements in the runtime performance. We saw that great dialogue and batch and RFC response time improvement overall post-go live. And then also help us with this new platform being in cloud. You can build system, you can rapidly refresh systems. Your time to market for system refreshes from 10 days, it came to 2 days. So we were able to achieve one critical highlight here is we were able to refresh system over a weekend. It was never, we never think of able to giving a system to a project team just 2 days and then give them on Monday. That was a major win for us. When you think of you have hundreds of consultants sitting on a project, and they don't have to wait for 10 days for the system to be available for development work or testing. That was a huge win for us. And since gone live, we have multiple times we have rebuilt, reprovisioned systems for various projects, as Vijay mentioned, and for repeating the integration test cycle. That's really helped us. So that's exactly another goal was to have a scalable, agile landscape so we can rapidly build systems and help the integration test cycles for other various projects. And then finally, it's a very important point is post-go live, we had a real incident post-go live, and we lost all our data right after go live, a quarter after go live. And the good news is we had all the great architecture data available for us. With the help of the ProServe team and internal team, we were able to recover the whole system within 24 hours. That was a major win, and it helped us validate that the data, the design, everything worked exactly to our runbook. We just followed our DR runbook, and we were able to execute our data recovery. I wanted to really thank our partner, AWS ProServe team, for helping us along the way. Okay. I wanted to invite Vijay back and talk about what's next for Nvidia. Okay.
Thank you, Bala. So I think as Bala mentioned, the two things mainly that we got really helped us is one, our integration, integrating the Mellanox. Without cloud move, I think we would not have able to done it in the time that we wanted to do. The second thing is the major incident, I think you all know it's a public information, some security incident. We were able to recover to the point. We did not even lost a single transaction in the SAP system. And our system gets hit transactions. You all know how SAP transactions are. And we were able to recover to every single transaction. We did not lose even we never posted another transaction again for the same thing. So that was a big benefit that we got out of the cloud, and we felt very good about it. Okay, thank God we were in cloud. Otherwise, if on-prem, it would have been ages for us to recover everything. We might have able to recover, but it could have taken a very, very long time. So, okay, what is next for us? So, as we said that we were doing some automated script-based backups. We already moved to the enterprise-level automated backups, which is already up and running. Bala already talked about it. FSX to moving to the file share, which is our one of the challenges, but which we couldn't do it during the upgrade project. Next is the S/4HANA. So we are continuing our digital transformation journey. So we will be running in parallel for both of them for some time. It is going to take some time because it's a huge implementation. We will slowly expanding to our S/4HANA, and then we'll be taking out the ECC over a period of time. So what are the key takeaways or the checklist for a successful SAP migration? So if you want to migrate, you do the legwork. The legwork is key. There is a lot of stuff that you can do even before you start your project. If you are thinking of, okay, I'll do when my project starts, that's not the right way to do. That's what we learned. If I have to redo the project, I will do I'll make sure all my core services, which is AWS landing zone, are already done, are already up and running so that I can use them. So, and then I'll make sure all my technical upgrades support Brian, and we figured out on the last minute one of the application out of support. We can't go out of support product to a live and then not getting support from SAP. You make sure all your applications are compatible, all your databases are compatible. You do a thorough check. That needs a lot of time. And you also, the most important thing is the integration points. You are talking to, like, in our case, our integration is with foundries, with subcons, all over the globe, across the globe. It's very difficult. It's time-consuming to go and talk to them. So luckily, our business folks, we had a great alignment with business, and they helped us in talking to them. Because you are moving, but you need to tell them and coordinate with them, and everybody takes their time. So, and across the globe, that you have to make sure all your integrations, you captured upfront, and you have a great plan in place, so by that you can test them thoroughly. Otherwise, there is going to be a lot of problems, and and then the more that upfront work that you do, the better it's going to be. And then also align your SLAs. And then the most important thing is the DR strategy. We went back and forth on the DR strategy. Oh, we want to do a small one, or we want to do a full-fledged. I think we need to be very, very clear about it. And thanks to SAP, they also gave their input on this. But if you define your DR strategy, be clear with your stakeholders what exactly that you want to, whatever your strategy is. So if you are clear on that, so if I have to redo the project, these are the things that I would keep that in mind. Right? Okay, so one thing that before coming into this, testing. So I cannot, I cannot emphasize on testing. We had a great testing team, and the team that they're all been working with Nvidia for a long time. They know all the ins and outs, what are the choking points. They worked really well, and then we implemented the good testing strategy. And the one thing is the mock cutover, which AWS ProServe team brought it to us, and we never did any mock cutover. They want to do as a mock cutover. Take a production system backup, put it in isolated environment, and then do it as if you are migrating your production. So I thought, Brian, are you guys crazy? So that's my quarter end. And and then you are telling me to do a mock cutover with my production system, and you are telling me it's going to be safe. So I have thousands and thousands of interfaces. One interface could go wrong and something goes wrong. I don't have any runway for the quarter end. So that is the time that I had a sleepless nights, that 4 or 5 days. Oh my God, we have to close the books, and we are doing a mock cutover. That's where these guys' expertise helped a lot. So now it's a good segue to why we choose AWS Professional Services. The things which we are not aware of it. So these, they brought that skill set gap into us, and then they helped us really, kind of a mock testing, or you kind of AWS landing zone, or special migration tools like cloud migration, the tools that they brought in helped really, and then the templates they got in, which also really, really helped us in speeding up things. Otherwise, it would not have happened in 8 months. 8 months, and in the mock testing really helped two things. We identified 4 P0 issues. So we were able to solve those 4 P0 issues before we do the actual cutover in November. So after the go live, we never had any P0 issue. So, and I got an email from one of my SVPs saying that, hey, when are we going live? We already went live last week. Oh, it has become a non-event to us. We don't even know that you guys went. Of course, we sent an email, maybe probably. He must be busy with so many other things, not looking at this email. But it was that kind of a non-event that mock cutover really helped us in isolating all the issues and solving the issues up front. Yeah, we had some small issues with permissions, with some folders, some data not putting it. I guess it will be there forever, and in any project there will be something. So that's where that ProServe really helped us, and Lemongrass, ProServe, and SAP, that combination with NVIDIA teams really, really helped us. So with that, I would like to give it back to Brian Griffin to talk about the new futures.
Thanks, Vijay.
Yep.
It's a fantastic partnership with both NVIDIA and Lemongrass. Our professional services team, certainly scales a fair amount with our partner network. We also directly contract with customers themselves. And I think the big thing that you'll notice is that when Vijay was talking about the next project they're doing, the continued business transformation to S4, professional services isn't there. And that is our intention, is that we are there as your one-time migration. Maybe you have some sort of very specific use case that's net new that you'd like to have us there for, something very surgical, and we're more than happy to do those type of things. But the intention isn't for us to be there and through the life of the project, right? We don't have an AMS practice. That's not the business that we're in. Our intention is to go and teach our customers how to run their environments themselves, or to leverage our AMS partner to be there to give supplementation. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about some of the new things on SAP on AWS. But before we start talking about all the stuff that's new, I think it's pretty good to look back, give you some context about where we've been. So I think the word you'll hear me say the most is first. And that's for a reason. So in 2008, SAP started leveraging our platform. So 14 years ago, they started using our platform for test and dev type systems, and it was their developers that were using those on-demand instances, and this was still real early days in cloud. So they became a customer of ours, and then fast forward 3 years later in 2011, that was a pretty big moment because AWS started first certifying production instances, meaning it had full SAP support. This is also at a time when SAP, when they were doing their certification, they were asking AWS to send them servers so that they could do validation. We said, listen, it's not that kind of thing. We actually have these things called APIs, and you log into our system. So there was a little bit of confusion there on how the cloud worked. But all that to say, we've broken a lot of glass with SAP and continued on this journey together. So we were the first to support SAP as a customer, the first to certify infrastructure for production workloads. We were the first SAP cloud deployment automation. That was started off with our quick starts. Now that's evolved and is what you see now as Launch Wizard. We were also the first purpose-built infrastructure for SAP HANA. That happened in 2016. It was a huge deal for us because we certified our 2 terabyte instances. It was the largest EC2 instances and largest EC2 instances, and also largest cloud instances that would support HANA at 2 terabytes. And you fast forward just one more year, and we doubled the size of that to 4 terabytes, which at that point in time was serviceable to about 95% of all SAP customers. So it was a really big deal because it went from just doing test and dev type workloads to big production workloads. And as someone in professional services, we service a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, and these were the customers that have been asking for well over a year, hey, our instances are larger than what you currently have. So there was a little bit of an arms race to go and get bigger and bigger instances, and I'm very happy to say, since I first started in 2015, when the largest instance size I think was 244 gig of main memory, now it's 24 terabytes for a single node. So literally 100x both vCPU and memory from when I started to right now, which means that we can service just about every customer that runs SAP and has intentions of doing that in the cloud. The last thing I also mentioned first, we're the first SAP Professional Services practice to specifically for AWS, and the first one to have a full-time partner team dedicated to SAP on AWS. I think what you'll notice as we mature in this time frame is that I mentioned we were real focused on infrastructure type items, things that were more the building blocks, the EC2 and EBS, individual features. But as the platform has progressed from 2015, when there was under 60 services, to now where there's 300 plus services, you'll notice that we're focusing on a lot higher level items. So not just on how to individual building blocks and how to build on AWS, but the orchestration of operation-based items in the cloud. So I'll touch upon it in the next few slides, but that's really where we're going. It's not just getting you to AWS, but once you are here, making sure that you have an excellent journey for the next 5 years. Okay, so what's new? First, we had the migration hub orchestrator. We use that as part of the Nvidia migration. You heard Vijay mention that. Bala mentioned that. But it is now integrated with SAP HANA and SAP NetWeaver. So that's really cool. It allows you to do a lift and shift for NetWeaver-based HANA systems if it is a homogeneous type migration. So it leverages MGN, which was formerly Cloud Endure, and that it does it in a kind of a workflow format, so it makes it so that amount of manual work that you have to do is more of a guided process. So that was something that was released this year. We've also made improvements to what we call migration acceleration programs, or MAPs, for SAP. That's more of a financial construct. So if you have you want to know a little bit more about that, feel free to talk to me after the session. I can get you in touch with the right folks around some financial incentives that we have for SAP customers. In the infrastructure space, we're always going to be doing this. This is kind of evergreen. The things that you should definitely be aware of are the next-gen instances, right? This is always going to keep moving, but if you're not using the R6 instances, or I guess Gen 6 instances, so for Intel, those are things like Ice Lake-based instances, R6, M6i, C6i, and then the AMD Milan instances, R6A, M6A, C6A, and especially X2. If you're currently on an X1 platform, please, 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 please move from X1 to X2. It's very, very little cost uplift, if any, depending on your financial, depending on the savings plans and things like that. But you will go from a system that used to push, I think, 135,000 SAPs, somewhere around there, to something that's close to 200,000 SAPs, right, for almost the exact same price. So plus it's using a Nitro platform versus a non-Nitro platform. There's some real benefits to moving to X2. It was really beneficial for our customers. And then for if you're looking to go and have the most SAPs per dollar, then you're really looking at those AMD Milan instances. They can't run HANA, but they are great for things like app servers. We also mentioned, you're right, Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. That's fantastic for customers who really need to squeeze out a lot of performance. Also, it has some capabilities. There's some capabilities that we couldn't previously offer. One of those things is support for host auto failover. So an on-prem architecture that a lot of customers had, where they had a standby node, so they have a 3+1 or a 2+1, whatever the architecture was. That +1 node allows things to fail over to that, and you can do that with NetApp ONTAP now. But just in general, there's a large customer base that use NetApp for things like file systems, and it's just a lot easier lift when they move it to the cloud. Something I wish was around when Nvidia was going live, but obviously they're swapping to that as we speak. And on the innovation front, this happened prior to reInvent, but it was the two things for AppFlow. One was ODP support, and the other one was bidirectional data flow. In the past, there was just one direction you could go, and now we can both push and pull information from SAP over that. But the big one was announced right before reInvent, is the launch of the AWS ABAP SDK. And what does that mean? That means that of the 300 services that AWS has, you can now natively talk to those services from using the same language that SAP uses. So I'm really excited to see what our customers and partners do with this ABAP SDK. The scalability and the performance around that are going to be exceptional. You don't have to use very specific protocols. All right, you can use the native RFC protocol to go and have that connectivity. So really excited about that, and we actually had a couple workshops around that already, so hopefully you got to see some of those. And then lastly, right, Launch Wizard continues to mature. The scale out deployments, if you have an instance that was created with Launch Wizard and was maybe a 3-node cluster, you can now have the feature of adding nodes. You can make that a 4-node cluster, a 5-node cluster, and Launch Wizard manages all of that for you. Also has a capability of cloning old deployments, so maybe you want to mimic what you did in production in some sort of bubble account. You can do that via Launch Wizard now. And now Launch Wizard also installs Solution Manager for you. So just another SAP application. Right now it does S4. Right now it does Solution Manager. And expect that to continue to mature as we go forward. And lastly, two things. Systems manager support for SAP. Right now, I think it's just the backups that we're talking about. So it's you were using AWS Systems Manager with the combination of AWS Backup to back up things like your SAP HANA databases. But what I'm really excited for is the next things that are going to be launched or in the works, things that you can use SSM, and for folks who haven't used SSM, there's a special namespace for code developed from AWS. So it gives you a menu of items and actions, and you can select which one of those you want to do. How cool would it be if one of those items said, I'd like to go through and patch all of my HANA systems, or I would like to go through and stop and start all of my SAP systems at once, or I would like to go through and do a kernel patch, right? So all of these things are now a possibility with Systems Manager for SAP. And then for folks who are using HANA CloudWatch Application Insights, we launched at reInvent observability for NetWeaver using that same application insights. It is really cool. It gives you a dashboard view into what's happening, not just at the infrastructure layer, but now it goes up into the stack to monitor your application. And it's not just doing things like, CPU and memory, which is certainly useful, but what it's actually doing is it is giving you a band to say this is normal or this is outside of the norm. This is an anomaly that we need to go and alert a customer for. And over time, it starts learning through AI and ML that's happening in the background what is normal for your particular business. So not only is it happening at the HANA level now, it's happening at the NetWeaver stack. It's also ingesting logs. So it's, again, not just EC2 information. It's ingesting logs from things like HANA, like the HANA alert log. So if you have an event, like an out-of-memory event, it's, again, sending you alerts, making you aware of things that are happening. So some really cool stuff that we're doing here. The dashboards are very nice visuals, and they're items that SAP customers care about. So I think the moral of the story here is that, yes, you had all these native tools that you could go and you could configure yourself, but what AWS is now providing you is a fully supported service to go and do some of these things, and that's the intention that we're going to keep getting deeper and deeper in this management. I should also mention, if you haven't been paying attention or you do care about industry analysts, once again, we find ourselves as the leader for the 5th straight year and the ISG infrastructure leader for SAP HANA. So we're really excited about that. That was something within the last 2 or 3 weeks. Also, if you haven't paid attention, we have something called the SAP Lens for the well-architected framework. So well-architected framework is something AWS has had for a number of years now. It focuses on 6 pillars. And we have a lens that, if you download the PDF, it's north of 100 pages. And it is items, it's prescriptive guidance on what you should be doing from an architecture perspective, and gives you a lot of different options, what's in support, what's not in support, all of that sort of stuff. And it follows each one of those pillars. So that is something, again, that is updated at least annually. I know there's a whole team of folks that work on that. Definitely check that out. And what you'll notice is more and more documentation is going to end up in that well-architected framework. And lastly, a little bit of plug for professional services. As Vijay and Bala mentioned, what we really like to pride ourselves in is risk mitigation, right? We want to make sure that when your journey to the cloud is not only a happy one, but also one that has the least amount of risk involved. We provide you safe passage to go and get there and make it so that your business outcomes can kind of become a reality. I didn't put the full NASCAR chart of professional services customers up here, but some of the ones recently, some of like Loves is here with us at reInvent, P66, Nvidia. All of these folks are leverage professional services, public references. More than happy to get you in touch with them if you want to cut us out of the loop. We'd love customers just to talk to customers. We don't need to be part of that conversation, so happy to do that. And for folks who are in attendance, hopefully you were able to attend some of the customer appreciation dinners, and you know that we'll kind of link you up with other folks in your industry or folks that are very similar size to you, so you can talk about, things that may have to do with AWS or maybe some decisions that you're deciding for your overall SAP strategy. On the professional services front, you're right, what we do is we have, again, a little menu of offerings. The first thing I always start with is this discovery workshop. That is where the rubber meets the road. We have someone come out to you or a team come out to you, and we just whiteboard. We try to understand what your business outcomes are, what time frame you have to do it, and then usually this is all complementary, so we can start hashing out all of the important details. This can certainly be done remotely. As we saw during COVID, we didn't have a chance. We did the entire project with Nvidia entirely remotely, but usually we try to go on site for those, and then it's the whatever kind of working model you want. And then all of those other items, the HA, DevOps, analytics for SAP, all of that sort of stuff can be encompassed in one resident architect, or you can kind of pick and choose if you want a more surgical type implementation. Okay, and then the next steps to start your journey, again, engage us for one of those discovery workshops. They're almost entirely complimentary. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, thank you to the NVIDIA team for being on stage with us. Thank you for sticking with us. I know we have the replay party tonight, and I'm standing between you and that. But it's amazing to see the number of SAP customers that we have here. It's the largest we've had by a wide margin. So thank you for your trust. We appreciate it.
Thank you.